in his return for Houston.
For the 6th time in Semion's career, he delivers the walk-off hit, and the Rangers even the series. And the Braves take a charging lead here in the 7th inning on the grand slam by Murphy. That was off the screen in front of Utah Street. A titanic 2-run homer by Jonathan Aranda.
Kevin Newman, his first home run as an Angel. Hello, Newman. Down and Sheets laying it out in left makes the grab. 3-run home run for Gavin Sheets, his 3rd hit of the day. The Padres take the lead. 2-run shot, Seitan Rafaela.
He sized it up perfectly. It did not go over the fence. It went in the glove. Great play.
Oh, that's majestic. Deep to right field. Riley Green, fireworks indeed. Tiger uppercut. And Kurtz has left the building.
It was only a matter of time.
Sports announcers talk like this the whole time. And they're standing next to a Dominican dude. They do this shit on purpose so you can see the contrast of English. Well, we're here with Manny Rodriguez. What an amazing game today. 3 for 5, 2 home runs. Holy crap. He's the player of the game. Manny getting off an injury and all of a sudden making a comeback. Manny, God, what a day, huh? How'd you feel? I feel good. I hit the ball and I run it like that. Back to you, Brad. What the fuck was that?
There are 2 kinds of people in this world. Those who love Old Bay and those who've never tried it. Because once you taste this Chesapeake Bay seasoning, you'll immediately be turned into a canvert. Old Bay goes great on seafood, chicken, corn on the cob, french fries, pretty much anything. Join the Legion of Canverts in America. Pick up a can today. And before you know it, this could be you. Old Bay, the can that connects us.
Another strikeout for Warren Spahn. Now let's join the pitching ace of the Milwaukee Braves for news of a great offer from Post Grape Nuts Flakes.
Kids, here's my tip for improving your baseball form. Here's my official Warren Spahn practice ball set that Grape Nuts Flakes offers you. This ball is so light, you can practice anywhere. Smooth out your pitching control. Handle fast grounders. Sharpen your batting eye. To get this official-size practice ball and this unbreakable plastic bat, get these boxes of Grape Nuts Flakes with my picture on the back. Follow the directions on the box. And say, Grape Nuts Flakes is crammed with the energy that you and I need to play baseball. These swell-tasting flakes keep me going full steam, with no letdown during the game. So take home Grape Nuts Flakes and send for your baseball practice set right away.
The next 2-2. Davis to left and will hit. Oh my! It's gone! Santa Maria!
From high atop the Robinson Gearing Studio Complex and straight out of God's country, Pawleys Island, South Carolina, the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network proudly presents Backwards K-Pod. And now, here's the host of the show, Jake Robinson.
I never move in slow-mo. Welcome to my dojo. There's other pods of so-so. I'm chill like bro, yo. Focus like a GoPro. Ripping up this promo. Check out the scoreboard. Freaks up the window. No, it's going, it's going, it's going. Yo, it's going. Your heart just stopped. Cause Jake got strong and mighty. Undefeated, I mean it. Pull up the pod, scroll it down, then read it. Written, produced, directed, and mixed. Dog on your lips and Ozzie Smith backflips. Pick a tip, any tip, get onto it. I got ridiculous pods without pulls and it. You sit at home crying like a girl while I spread the gospel around the world. Yo, the pods are written behind tracks that mixed it smooth with the groove to make ears wanna live. Add a little cut and a rhythm to back it up. Another show to my name, now watch you stack them up. You think another way grab back, but this ain't no ad jack. But hops the rhyme, some people try to be black, but that about time I come out, call the show BKP, now let me turn it out. Yo, then kick the state for the 71. James, you know what time it is, I'm packing them guns. Your experience, I've been a witness to glory, and that's why I collect ball players and their stories. You heard? So, once again, back is the incredible, the pod animal, Jake the Snake Robinson from the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. I'm coming out of Pawleys Island, South Kakalaki. Half man, half podcast machine. Back in the Captain Kirk chair, shields down, photons up. Prepare to engage on this week's digital audio program that I call Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. Greetings and salutations, Seamheads. What's cracking? Welcome back into the dojo for Chapter 179 in the anthological, biographical, and historical counting of the players, characters, managers, stadiums, and all the pop culture references that have molded and shaped our perspective and knowledge about this beautiful tapestry of life we call baseball. I'm Jake Robinson. I got your hookup. Holler if you hear me. I'm joined, as usual, in the studio today by my compadre of chaos, the felonious feline of ferocity, the chocolate tabby of tenaciousness, my soldier Charlie Gunn's little gunner, posted up in the conductor's booth of our BKP time travel steam diesel, vaping out of some catnip oils, patiently awaiting orders to set up on this week's baseball adventure. We got more ground to cover than, I don't know, Vince Coleman scoring from first base, and I'm coming in hot, ready to get after it. And if I can, I'd like to get all of you remaining stragglers hanging out on the platform here at Terrapin Station to kiss and hug your loved ones goodbye as I make final preparations for our departure. As I look to the west of Terrapin, I can see clearly inside our immaculately manicured jewel box retro ballpark. I have a wide open, beautiful view inside the structure down the left field line as it disappears at home plate. And the hometown BKP 9 have come roaring out of the dugout to take the field in tonight's contest. Our starting pitcher has completed his warm-up tosses. He looks sharp, ready to deal. The catcher has gone down to second with an absolute seed on the bag. The impoters are now whipping that rock around the diamond with a little snap and swagger. And the home plate umpire has cleared off the dish and said the two sexiest words ever uttered in all of humanity: play ball. As the visiting team's leadoff stick walks to the plate to get this game started, that's my cue, as usual, to get this train rolling up the tracks. I'm calling all aboard, as I will have my boy Gunner set our time and destination for April 23rd, 1921, Buffalo, New York, for the birth of a baseball immortal and his prominent rise to greatness, as this week I present a detailed profile on the great Warren Spahn. So, hurry, step right up, get in where you fit in. Welcome to your modern marvel of science and engineering. You can post up in our expansive lounges, or you can retreat to a private boxcar for the trip to Buffalo, New York in the year of our Lord, 1921. Take off your shoes, kick up your dogs, open your kimonos, get yourself nice and comfortable for our trip ahead as Gunner hits the necessary quantum speeds needed to hit 6.0 gigahertz of RF on our spectrum analyzer. He's creating anomalous traversal wormholes, bending the laws of baseball space and time, tilting the celestial scales in our favor, all in an effort to take us to our preferred time and destination for the Genesis backstory of truly one of the greatest southpaws to ever toe the rubber, the incomparable Warren Spahn. In a 21-year playing career, Spahn went 363 and 245 from 1942 to 1956, the fifth winningest pitcher in the long history of the game, as well as the winningest left-handed pitcher ever. Due to probably remaining in the game for 2 seasons too long, he finished his playing career with an ERA just a tick over 3 runs per 9 innings at 309 and a winning percentage just a smidge under 600 at 597, and all of this bears significance when you attach it to the context that Warren Spahn, he don't even record his first major league victory until he's 25 years old, folks. A star on the bump and a hero on the battlefields of Europe during World War II, Spahn made his mark on American history wearing 2 totally different types of uniforms. But fellow Hall of Famer Stan Musial had a whimsical but serious doubts as to whether Spahn, who pitched into his mid-40s, would ever be honored at the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, despite his gaudy stats. And his reasoning, well, it was simple enough. He often said, I don't think Warren will ever get in because he'll never stop pitching. Words that would have an ironic, near prophetic truth behind them. Because the winningest southpaw in the history of the game, well, he had to wait 7 years to enter the Hall of Fame in his first year of candidacy, of eligibility. And I can hear the gears in some of your heads right now moving about like, huh? Players have to have a 5-year wait before being eligible for the Hall. Why would Spahn have to wait 7 years? Well, here's what happened. On January 24th, 1973, Spahn is voted into the pantheon of greats as an inner circle tribal chief. Warren was one of those dudes he aged like a fine wine, leading the National League in complete games and each of the final 7 seasons that he was a regular member of a rotation. At the age of 44, in 1965, he hangs up the spikes for good. But because he pitched in the Mexican League in 1966 and appeared in 3 games with the Pacific Coast League Tulsa Oilers as a player-manager, the Baseball Writers of America, in their infinite wisdom, they ruled that Warren Spahn had not truly retired from the game and therefore was ineligible for induction until 1973. Now, the rules have since been changed, and they now stipulate that a player's Hall of Fame candidacy clock continues to move forward as long as they don't appear in a Major League game. But in 1973, that was not the rule of the books for the Hall of Fame eligibility status. Even though his Major League career was over, his short stints playing in the PCL and Mexican League, it delayed his eligibility for induction by 2 years, and for a while there, it kind of looked like Stan the Man's musings might actually come to fruition. Spahn would be inducted on April 6, 1973, in Cooperstown, New York, with a class that included Roberto Clemente, Billy Evans, Monty Irvin, George Kelly, and Mickey Welch. And He almost annually returned to Cooperstown for the incoming induction ceremonies nearly every year afterward, after being inducted. And that ran until his passing on November 24, 2003, at the age of 82. And here we know, our nerds, as Gunner has us ripping through that last traversable wormhole, we find ourselves in Buffalo, New York, as we come bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh for the birth of a baseball king, Warren Edward Spahn, who is the fifth of 6 children and the first of 2 sons born to Ed and Mabel Spahn. And they named the boy Warren after the 29th President of the United States, Warren G. Harding. The father, Ed, was a $27 a week wallpaper salesman, supporting his family in the city's blue-collar end, east end side of Buffalo, New York. Edward never owns a car, and his family eats meat maybe once or twice a week on his meager salaries. Then the children would often stuff their shoes with newspaper to keep their toes warm during the brutal Buffalo winters. But Edward has a proclivity to excel in sports. As a youngster, he was a fantastic bowler, a semi-pro baseball player, but his 5'7" stature, it left the young boy frustrated and standing on the outside looking in, dreaming of a big league baseball career. Now, to supplement his ambitions and disappointment and his own physical shortcomings, he spends his free time and energy invested in teaching baseball and the finer nuances of the game to his young left-handed son, who was clearly the most naturally gifted athlete out of all of his kids. At an early age, Edward realizes that there aren't many options as a left-hander baseball. You're looking at pitcher, catcher, first baseman, or outfielder. So, just in case his son doesn't develop into a hard-hitting first baseman capable of challenging pitchers with a stick off the left foot, the father would teach his youngster how to throw moving fastballs and high-looping 12-6 curveballs from the makeshift mound he built in the family's backyard. Years later, Warren would recall how his father insisted on tight, fluid mechanics and command of the strike zone. His words would rattle in Warren's psyche throughout his pitching career, when his father would always be in his ear as a youngster with his mantra, "You are nothing without control." You don't ever want to be their back foot against batters, and Warren, the ever dutiful Padawan, would listen to his father's advice, nod his head, and continue with the bullpen sets, and dream about striking out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Edward concentrated on developing his young prodigy to have a smooth, repeatable motion at an early age. He teaches the boy to just deploy a high leg kick to give his pitches deception. And the boys in the sandlot of Buffalo, New York would always tell Warren that his pitches appeared to shoot out of his uniform jersey, and before their baseball brain could commit to swinging or laying out the pitch, the ball was practically on top of them in the box. Warren would always credit the teachings of his father for his injury-free career and longevity, recounting how Ed was responsible for laying the foundation to his Hall of Fame path. He taught me how to follow through properly with my shoulder and body, and how to throw without putting strain on the arm. He taught me how to get the most out of every pitch and out of my way, even when I was a young, skinny kid. He also taught the southpaw how to roll a curveball, how to release the ball from his fingertips at the very last moment, and with his usual emphasis on mechanics, ensuring that his young apprentice make his right elbow pass his right knee with his eye in the catcher's glove. And sometimes Warren would become frustrated with his pop's fascination with his mechanics, and he just wanted to play a game of catch with his father. But his father had zero desire whatsoever to play catch with his son unless his son threw properly, the way he was taught. The father and son began to regularly go to Buffalo Bison's minor league games together, and Warren, who mostly plays first base at this time, he becomes obsessed with Big Bill Kelly, who mans first base for the Bisons and smashes 149 home runs in his career with the club from 1922 to 1930. His father, Edward, had actually played semi-pro ball with Bill Kelly before landing with the Bisons, and he loved the fact that his son admired his former teammate. And he would tell his young boy, if you want to be a first baseman, then you should emulate Bill Kelly. But if you decide to become a pitcher, then you should track the motion of Bison's pitcher Charlie Lefty Perkins, another player his father had befriended on the Buffalo sandlots when he was chasing his own team dreams. Now, because of Ed's connection to the Bison's ball club, Warren was able to shag fly balls during team batting practice, and Warren would always call players that he didn't know Kelly. So in turn, the team called him Kelly Spahn. And Warren would remember how after working out with the team and taking in the game, his blue-collar father would offer his son the option to go to the ice cream parlor and get a couple cones, or they could spend the money on a streetcar ride home. And many times, Warren would opt for the ice cream, and he and his father would walk home happily licking their ice cream award and rehashing the results of the Bison's games. As a kid, Warren had dreams of being the next Lou Gehrig. When he's 9 years old, he dons his first Little League uniform for the Lake City Social Club Midgets, and he plays with them for 3 years. He graduates to American Legion Baseball, which was a great feeding ground for future MLB prospects in those days, and eventually Warren is playing first base for 3 local teams 6 days a week. And one of his greatest memories of baseball as a youngster were the occasions when he and his father played on the same diamond as teammates for the Lake City Athletic Club. He's 13 years old, weighs 110 pounds soaking wet. His 37-year-old father is playing third base and throwing Scud missiles at his young son playing first. And he remembers thinking how his father was seemingly trying to throw the ball through his son at first base, but there's a method to Ed's madness, and it was a learning moment for the two, as Ed was teaching his son to play every game as hard as you can, and that mindset, it pays dividends in Warren's development throughout his career. However, when Warren enrolls at South Park High School, he finds himself second on the team depth chart to all-scholastic stud first baseman Bill Benjamin, who would later go on to become a professional wrestler. So, reluctantly, Warren makes the butterfly effect moment decision to take up pitching. And when the high school coach asked the young southpaw If he had a favorite uniform number, the kid shoots back, yeah, I love 13. Which, back then, that number was viewed as unlucky, and teams usually didn't carry a number 13. And the coach queries, 13, huh? And Warren says, yup, 13 has always been good luck to me. Warren leads his high school team to 2 city championships. He went undefeated his last 2 seasons on the bump. He hurls a no-no his senior year. Unfortunately, he isn't on many scouts' baseball radar, as most insiders saw the boy as way too skinny to compete at the highest level. But as fate would have it, a disenchanted Red Sox scout named Billy Myers is a believer in Warren's development upside, and it disagrees with the scouting consensus about responsibilities. And Myers has also scouted infielder Sebastian Sisti for the Red Sox, but he doesn't like how the Sox are dicking Sisti around in contract negotiations, so he quits the Red Sox gig, takes Sisti with him, and moves across the street to work for the inner-city rival Boston Braves team. The Braves back then were commonly called the Boston Bees, and Meyer is a part-time club employee in 1940, and he's impressed with Spahn's impeccable control in high school. And along with Warren's father's Ed's influence and promotion, the Bees and Billy Myers signed the kid to a contract for $80 a month. $80 a month in 1940. It has the economic power of $1,700 today in the 2025 economy. At this point in Warren's baseball journey, he has the option of choosing to attend Cornell University on a partial scholarship, but the family is much too poor to accommodate the cost of college, so Warren accepts the Bees' offer and heads off to begin his baseball career in the lower minor league levels. His first assignment is playing in Bradford, Pennsylvania in the Pony League for manager Jack Onslow. When Spahn asks his new manager for his customary number 13 jersey, Onslow rebuffs the young southpaw, telling him, "We don't carry a 13 jersey in this team. A guy is liable to run into enough bad luck around here without wearing a goddamn 13 on your back." So he gives the kid number 21 instead. And about a third into the season, Warren begins to tinker with his arsenal of pitches, and he develops an overhand curve. But at some point, he snaps off a curveball with too much torque, and he tears several tendons in his throwing shoulder. Warren returns home to Buffalo with his arm in a sling, and his father, who by now is living vicariously through the ups and downs of his son's baseball journey, he goes into a dark depression over his son's injuries. 2 weeks later, Spahn returns to Pennsylvania. He throws the first pitch of his return, and he tumbles on the mound. When the embarrassed boy gets back on his feet, he begins clutching his shoulder as intense pain begins to surge through his arm. The team trainer recommends that the young prospect shut it down for the rest of the season, which makes Onslow mutter, "Maybe I should have just given the kid number 13 after all." The second setback, it causes his father to go into a deeper funk, and he's actually hospitalized for depression. Warren spends the rest of the year moonlighting at the Buffalo Railroad Terminal, checking baggage for commuters. Despite the abbreviated season, Warren finishes his rookie campaign at professional baseball with a 5-4 record, 62 strikeouts in 66 innings, and a 2.83 ERA, impressing Oslo and Bison's management with his potential. He recovers the next year, only to run into more bad luck. In a 1941 spring training start in San Antonio, Texas, he suffers a broken nose, which would be permanently disfigured by an errant throw from a teammate, and the injury created team razzing with his mates who called him Hook because of his crooked snout, a nickname that would stick with them throughout the years, and really a nickname he didn't appreciate in the beginning. Even his own father began calling him Meat Nose. Spahn's son, Greg, would always retell the story about his father's nose injury, saying, when Dad's nose was broken, John Bernardino also broke his nose on the very same day. The team would send John off to specialists to fix the break, but the team called his father to the office and tells Warren, look, we'll send you to a specialist to fix your nose, but here's the thing. Most people who get their broken noses fixed end up with serious sinus problems down the road. And let's face it, Warren, you're really not a good-looking guy anyway, so what the hell are we doing here? And Greg always chuckles when retelling that story, pointing out that the ball club didn't really want to spend money on his father's nose, but John Bernardino, who was also a part-time actor during the off-season, was worthy of the investment. B's manager, the legendary Queso Stengel, who was keeping an eye on the young southpaw's progression from afar, he tells the Boston media that this kid is green and he needs seasoning. But mark my words, if this kid can stay healthy, he is destined to be a great one. In fact, I believe that someday this kid will be the best left-handed pitcher in the game. In the summer of 1941, when playing for Evansville, Indiana, in the 3I League, Spahn leads the circuit with 19 wins, a .760 winning percentage, 7 shutouts, and a sublime 1.83 ERA. During one stretch in the 1941 season, Warren hurls 42 consecutive scoreless innings and 3 one-hitters to lead the Evansville club to a league pennant. Manager Bob Coleman, he changes Spahn's delivery to put even less pressure on his left elbow, and Warren's roommate, Willard Donovan, shared the secrets to his dazzling pickle play with him that Warren would perfect, becoming one of the game's best pickup artists in the history of baseball. According to the legend, Hall of Fame catcher Ernie Lombardi was warming Warren up in spring training in 1945. Spahn leans back and throws the best fastball that he can possibly throw, and Lombardi catches it with his bare hand before spitting tobacco juice on the ball and returning it back to the young southpaw. Warren turns his back to his catcher, and he begins rubbing the tobacco juice off the orb, and he thinks to himself that, well, maybe I just don't belong here. Maybe all those scouts were right. But despite his self-doubts, though, his smooth overhand delivery and follow-through, it wins raves from onlookers at the 1942 spring training camp in Florida, and he makes the big league Boston team, who by now are rebranded as the Braves once again. However, in the second outing of the year for the Braves, Spahn dismisses team orders to drill Dodgers shortstop Pee Wee Reese, and Stengel, who personally ordered the hit, walks to the mound and growls at the rookie, "Give me the ball. And after your shower, pick up your railroad ticket to Hartford, Connecticut." Spahn apologizes to his old school manager and then reports to the Eastern League, where he goes 17-12 with a 1.96 ERA. Good enough to impress the Braves into promoting the young pitcher twice more for a club that finishes in 7th place for the National League pennant. He fails to notch a win with the big club in his 15 2/3 innings pitched during the last 2 promotions, but he does get proper credit for an abbreviated complete game on September 26, 1942 at the Polo Grounds in New York City, when a bunch of kids who had been admitted into the park for free that day as a reward for working at scrap metal drive in preparation for World War II, they bum rushed the field and forced the Giants to forfeit a game, which the Giants were actually winning at the time, 5-2. But pitchers do not get wins credited to them and forfeited games. But all of this is just a prelude to war. He enlists for the Army in October 1942, and in November, Buck Private Spahn is shipped out to Camp Cooper, 60 miles southwest of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he's trained to be a combat engineer. It's also where his childhood chum, Roy Ryman, introduces him to the love of his life, a Ms. Lorene Southard, an oil company executive secretary who had a brilliant business acumen, intelligence, and would actually make Warren a very wealthy man later in life after baseball. The portside pitcher has a far rougher World War II experience than most of his big league peers who spent the years of conflict with baseball gloves and bats instead of guns. But before entering into the fight against the Axis powers of Japan, Italy, and the Deutschland, he did get to play a little baseball. Pitching in 1944 for the Fort Gruber Engineers with his friend Ryman as his personal catcher, Spahn wins his first 10 games, and 7 of those 10 wins by way of shutout. He dominates batters, striking out 186 batters in only 80 innings. And the winning streak was snapped on July 30th, 1944 at Texas League Park, where he commits 3 throwing errors and a 7-1 loss to the Atlas Electrics of Tulsa. On November 9th, 1944, Spahn is shipped to Europe aboard the HMS Queen Mary as a staff sergeant in the 276th Engineer Combat Battalion. He arrives in war-torn France a few weeks later and survives his first 10 days in Europe basically on peanut butter sandwiches that were provided to him by friendly British soldiers. Spahn's 9th Armored Division, which preceded much larger groups of Allied troops, was commissioned to repairing roads and bridges bombed into oblivion by the enemy. He fought in Bastogne, Belgium, on the frozen battlefield in the Battle of the Bulge, getting nicked by bullets on the abdomen and in the back of his head, in the face of just terrifying non-stop artillery shelling by the Nazis. As his division crosses France and Belgium, they arrive at the Rhine River and the Ludendorff Railroad Bridge at Ramagen on March 7, 1945. As they chase Nazi forces across the 2 countries, the enemy would usually make it standard procedure to destroy every standing bridge, but the Nazis failed to destroy the Ramagen Bridge. All of the demolition explosives were in place for the bridge's destruction, but the fleeing German army in their hasty retreat failed to detonate the bombs. The bridge's defense was critical for the Allies to deliver men, vehicles, and weapons into the Deutschland heart. On March 9th, Sergeant Spahn and the 276 are ordered to remove the German demolitions, repair the bridge, maintain it, construct a second span bridge for two-way traffic and stand guard. The divisions work hard day and night to maintain the girders under continuous bombing attacks by the Nazi Luftwaffe pilots, while troops, tanks, and trucks cross the structure above them. And Warren would never forget this historical moment, remembering how the bridge would sway above them precariously as marching troops trampled across the catwalks and tanks rumbled across the planked rail bed. Spahn and his boys, they patched holes with heavy supports, repaired damages to the floor of the bridge that would occur during daily bombing runs by the Luftwaffe. 10 days after the first successful crossing into enemy lines, Sergeant Spahn is tasked with the mission of taking over the bridge's security at 1600 hours, or at 4 o'clock for all you civilians in the audience. 4 minutes before Spahn and his division were to take control of the bridge's security, the overloaded and bombarded span and collapses into the river, killing 28 American soldiers and injuring 93. And Spahn himself catches some shrapnel in his left foot. Having crossed the Rhine already, the Americans are able to protect the second bridge from collapse, and they also build smaller pontoon bridges that the Army engineers would construct. On June 1st, 1945, he becomes the only baseball player during World War II to be given a battlefield promotion from staff sergeant to second lieutenant. By the time the war in Europe comes to its bloody conclusion, Warren had earned a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, a battlefield promotion, and a Presidential Citation, making him easily the most decorated Major League Baseball player in World War II. After surviving the horrific violence of the war, the 23-year-old Spahn, he began showing signs of rapid aging with his diminishing hairline and his customary soldier's 1,000-yard stare. But Spahn had also built up his stamina, attention to detail, concentration, and discipline in the trade-off. And he would often say, after everything I went through fighting overseas, I never thought of anything I needed to do at the ballpark as hard work. You get over that nonsense when you spend days sleeping in a frozen foxhole in enemy territory. The Army taught me perspective and what is important in life. The fellas that died over there, they were true heroes. And typically, Spahn had a dark sense of humor and the grimiest of situations. And because Nazi spies would often infiltrate enemy lines wearing American service uniforms, he would always ask newcomers to the division, who played second base for the Bums? And if that person didn't competently reply back, Eddie Stanky, then Spahn would keep a suspicious, wary eye on the newcomer and hope that he doesn't have to kill him. After all, what American kid doesn't know the second baseman for the Brooklyn Dodgers, for crying out loud? Even after the war and his iconic career, Spahn was pragmatic about his life, saying, I matured a lot in those war years. Sure, the writers would estimate I lost about 30 or 40 wins to my resume, lost to fighting in the war, but without those experiences in Europe, I probably would have lacked the maturity to pitch until I was 45 years old. And that's a statement that says a lot about Warren's character and perspective on not only baseball, but life as well. By contrast, the heater out of band meter Iowa, Bob Feller, whom I've covered with his standalone biopic and sent to BKP Archives. He used to always opine that had a lot lost time due to wartime service, I'd have won more games than Warren Spahn. For the record, Feller finishes his distinguished career with 266 wins to Warren's 363. Contrasting philosophies from two of the great pitchers of that era. Unaware that the war would end 2 months later with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945, Spahn accepts the battlefield promotion that ostensibly requires him to remain in the service until May, and the promotion forces him to miss the entire 1946 baseball season. Instead, he becomes a host pitcher in post-war Germany that spring. Pitching for his 150 engineers group, he allows 1 earned run and strikes out 73 batters in 4 games. When he finally returns stateside, the Braves immediately promoted to the majors on June 10, 1946, which makes Warren respond by saying to Braves manager Billy Southard, "This is the first time in years I've had to report to anyone without saluting." A week later, Spahn appears in his first post-war contest, and it falls on Bunker Hill Day in New England. He comes out of the Braves bully. He gives up 1 run on 4 hits in 4 innings against the Cardinals on Braves Field. On July 14th, Spahn makes his first start, and he's impressive in a 4-1 win against the Buccos at Ford Field. Kicking his left leg high into the air and his left elbow clearing his knees just like his father had taught him, then uncoiling the ball, zipping into the zone, seemingly out of his flapping jersey sleeves, and in on the batter before he could react like a blazing freight train coming out of the darkness. Only one Pirate, Frankie Costin, who dropped solo dong, got past second base that afternoon, and was Warren's first major league win. But all he could think about is Lorene Southard, whom he has grown particularly fond of, and manager Billy Southard, he tries to rein in his love-struck pitcher, imploring Warren to wait till after the season to marry Lorene. He even offers to be Warren's best man, and he offers to pay for the wedding and honeymoon if he just waits on his urges. But Spahn can't wait to marry Lorene, and he marries her on an off day on August 10th. After his initial success, Warren goes into a slump, losing 4 straight starts in a row. Dodgers coach Chucky Dressen tells the Boston sports writers that Spahn, he's very talented, but he tips his pitches, and we can beat Spahn every time he pitches against us. We know every pitch that he throws before it even gets to the dish. The 25-year-old Warren finished his 1946 career with a campaign with a 2.9 WAR and an 8-5 record and a 2.94 ERA. Warren would work hard with Braves pitching coach Johnny Cooney in the spring to correct his flaws. And when the local scribes asked him if he's now feeling the pressure of following up his breakthrough season with a successful one, Spahn shoots back, "Pressure? What pressure? If I do badly, what's the worst that can happen? It's not like anyone is going to try to kill me. No pressure at all." He won his first game at the age of 25, and because of his wartime experiences, receding hairline, and relatively advanced age, Spahn fits right into the clubhouse as an elder statesman on the team, even though he only has 1 full year of Major League Baseball under his belt. Teammates used to always say, Warren was born with an old man's soul. And pitchers as a whole are a temperamental lot of guys. Many of them are really unapproachable on the days they start. But for his part, Warren was a prankster who reveled in a good practical joke and considered whacking a teammate on the head, setting a straw hat on fire, or leaving mice in his teammates' pockets as his way of relaxing and coping with the pressures of Major League Baseball. Now, an act like that can grow old in a hurry if you don't win, but there are team expectations that Warren is merely an ace in weight. In 1947, Warren takes his place among the elite with a 21-win season. He leads the National League in WAR with a 9.5, a 2.33 ERA, 289 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 7 shutouts, while receiving only 13 runs of support in his 10 losses. The Braves finished the year as a team in 3rd place. Most of the 1948 season was a polar opposite from the year before, as Warren is preoccupied by his wife's pregnancy, the birth of their only child, Greg, on October 1st, and an erratic fastball. He finishes the year with a 15-12 record, but along with right-hander Johnny Sain, pitches the Braves all the way to the National League pennant with an incredible stretch run that prompted the Spahn and Sain the Pray for Rain poem crafted by Boston sports editor Jerry Hearn that has become a pop culture favorite handed down through the times and the generations. The exact words of the poem are this: first we'll use Spahn, and then we'll use Sain. Then an off day, followed by rain. Back will come Spahn, followed by Sain, and then followed, we hope, by 2 days of rain. Beginning on September 8th, or September 6th, 1948, Spahn and Sain would start 11 of Boston's next 16 starts. And on that day, Warren throws 14 innings and a 2-1 gem of a victory over the Brooklyn Dodgers in a game that sees him pick off Jackie Robinson twice. The win sparks a stretch that sees the Braves go on a torrid stretch where the team goes 13-1, all but wrapping up the NL pennant. They go on to face the Cleveland Indians in the 1948 World Series, but Hook loses his only start of the season, 4-1 in Game 2. His partner in crime, Johnny Sain, who beat Bob Feller in a 1-0 pitcher's duel in Game 1, he tries to console his mentor after the loss, saying a few inches the other way, and a couple of those hits would be outs. He gave it a good try. The crestfallen pitcher looks his teammate in the eye, and he tells him, I tried to win them all, Johnny, just like you. With the Braves in a 3-1 hole, Warren seeks some redemption in Game 5 when he comes out of the Boston Bully and pitches 5 2/3 innings of 1-hit ball, striking out 7 Indians en route to 11-5 drubbing before the largest crowd to ever witness a baseball game at the time, 86,288 fans inside of Cleveland Stadium. Back in Beantown the next day, the Braves are in a must-win situation, and manager Billy Solworth is tactically contemplating pitch hitting for Game 6 starter Bill Boysell. He pulls Warren to the side of the dugout and asks his southpaw hurler if there's anything left in the tank, barely 24 hours after shutting down batters in Game 5. Spahn tells his manager, I'll give it a go. So Solworth makes the move and pinch hits for Boysell and pencils Spahn to enter the game in the 8th with the Braves trailing 3-1. And Warren remembers that, yeah, his arm was a little fatigued, but he convinces himself he's up to the mission. As he's warming up, though, Hook doesn't feel like himself. His command is off. He realizes he may not have his A-plus fastball. He needs to find the strike zone and blow away batters with velocity and movement. The Indians quickly pounce on the weary ace and score some Geico insurance in the top half of the eighth on 3 successive singles before Spahn shut the rally down with a pickoff play that results in a double play. The Braves would get 2 runs back in the bottom of the 8th to bring them within a run of Cleveland, but those would be the last runs Boston would score in the 1948 Fall Classic to lose the series 4 games to 2 and Game 6 by the score of 4-3. For his part, Warren retires the last 4 batters he faces in the series, regaining his composure to strike out the side of the 9th to give him 12 strikeouts and 12 innings of work in the 1948 Fall Classic. And to this day, members of the Boston Braves Historical Association anecdotally speculate and wonder aloud, had Spahn held the Tribe scoreless in Game 6, and if the Braves had rallied to win the 1948 series, would the team have left the city so soon thereafter? And, of course, as purely anecdotal questions, so no one can truly answer that question definitively. But the club certainly didn't help their survival in Boston with a lackluster, uninspiring title defense in 1949. Almost from the start of the season, the team is in self-destruct implosion mode with swirling winds of dissension, injuries, contract squabbles surrounding the franchise, and the team stumbles to 4th place, finishing 4 games below 500. Already annoyed by the signing of first 18-year-old bonus baby pitcher Johnny Antonelli to a mammoth $50,000 contract with its worth around $600,000 today in the 2025 economy, the veterans of the Braves team, they balk and revolt against Solwerth's 2-a-day workout regimen during spring training, and things just went downhill from there. It got so bad that manager Billy Solwerth begins drinking so heavily that he has no choice but to take a leave of absence from his post 2/3 of the season end. Then, as if things can't possibly get any worse, Braves management infuriates the fans and the clubhouse alike when they trade their keystone combination middle infielders, shortstop Alvin Dark and second baseman Eddie Stanky to the Giants. But none of those distractions or even his own salary disputes with the club could penetrate Warren's will to compete and win. He is now a fully matured 28-year-old war and baseball hero who has grown into this lanky build, and he now weighs 172 pounds with his powerful chiseled chest and thick wrists. From 1949 to 1951, he goes 21-14, 21-17, 22-14, leading the National League in strikeouts in all those years, and then wins twice. He could go long in starts, like on June 14, 1952, when he pitches 15 innings and a 3-1 loss to the Cubs, striking out 18 batters, which was then a big league record. He also had a long memory with great oratory skills. He'll never forget facing Giants Hall of Famer and icon Willie Mays, who was struggling as a rookie and still fighting his way in 1951. And Warren would say he was something like 0 for 21 at the time. Well, it was actually 0 for 12, but I digress. He was something like 0 for 21 for the first time I saw him. His first big league hit was a home run off of me, and I'll never, ever forgive myself. We might have gotten rid of Willie forever if I had just struck him out that fucking day. He was also an oracle of sorts whose every word of pitching was eagerly anticipated when he was holding court in the clubhouse. He once said a pitcher needs 2 above-average pitches, one that the batters are looking for, and the other one that you use to cross them up with. On one occasion, he has stated that hitting is timing and pitching is the upsetting of that timing. And that's a phrase you've probably heard before and a mantra that is taught to little leaguers around the globe today. His quotability factor was a welcome distraction for the 1952 Boston Braves, who tumbled into the second division, with Spahn going 14-19 despite a league-leading 103 strikeouts for his 4th straight strikeout crown and a sparkling 2.94 ERA. Between the infighting and chaos surrounding the club, the antiquated and obsolete Braves field is unable to keep up with the automobile boom driving the nation, a shrinking fan base in comparison to the cross-city rival Red Sox, and the subpar product they're putting out on the field. The Braves implode and collapse onto itself in 1952. And the rumors of the Braves relocating west become a reality when owner Lou Perini rips the club out of the city and moves him to Milwaukee, Wisconsin on March 8, 1953. For damn near 50 years, from 1903 to 1952, Major League Baseball had been a model of consistency. Unlike the NBA and NFL, MLB teams have remained stable in their bases and their markets, and they didn't really have to deal with franchises constantly relocating to new places. During that span, there were 16 teams in 10 cities, with New York having 3 teams, and St. Louis, Philadelphia, and Boston each having 2 teams apiece, based in their respective cities. But in retrospect, Lou Perini was giving the seamheads of his day a glimpse into baseball's future. The future of baseball had arrived, and that future included westward expansion and relocation. Brooklyn Dodgers president Walter O'Malley, who was observing the shift in baseball's landscape, he tells the Associated Press that this is just the beginning of a chain reaction, which will probably see more virgin territories being drafted into the MLB fold. And of course, O'Malley's words become prophetic as the Browns leave St. Louis in 1954, a year later, posting up in Baltimore, becoming the Orioles, followed by the A's exodus from the city of Brother Love to play in Kansas City a year later. And then in 1958, O'Malley himself takes his Dodgers to La La Land, with the Giants moving to San Francisco later that same year. Lou Perini, who was forgotten by most, absolutely changed the game of baseball for the better. And he has to be considered one of the most unsung game-changing faces for the game's history in the 20th century. The country has changed in the last 75 years, Perini would say, after the historical move. You can't deny that Los Angeles and San Francisco are major league markets. The same holds true with Baltimore and Montreal, as well as many other cities. And in my opinion, there's going to be a need one day for third major league in the game's future. Now, in hindsight, we all know that Perini's last prediction of a third major league, it never comes to fruition, but his vision for expanding westward does, as the league mushrooms from the 16 teams in 1953 to the 30 major league teams that play today. And if you want to know more about the Braves decision to flee Beantown. I have the history of the Braves available in my catalog of bangers that you can find on whatever platform you're using now to consume this show. Or you could go to diamondsnakejake.podbean.com for the long history of this franchise. So, check it out, nerds. With the curtain drawing of Warren's run in Boston, I feel like this is the right time to pull my candy apple red Ferrari into the paddock, trade out these medium compound tires for a set of hards before heading back onto the grid looking for a podium finish to this week's story. When I return, we'll pick up where I left off as the Braves settle into their new home in Milwaukee with the 31-year-old ace shooter still holding it down on the bump. My boy Gunner is ready for his reward. Treats for a great first segment owed. So let me take care of that. I'm going to step out, pay some bills, formulate a trajectory and timeline for the Maniacs 2 and 3 of the Warren Spahn bio. Hydrate, rip a tube or two of this righteous flower I'm holding on to before returning here at Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and the stories. Sit tight, nerds. Don't go anywhere. BRB. Meet me on the dark side of the moon.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I come out. Give it to me.
Today, what an opening act, huh? I think we've got a leading man and many of them.
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet. Swing it up and drive. It's eighth man.
A swing, long drive, way back. It's good.
There's a new home.
Wind up. Here's the pitch.
New Presidente has painted an absolute masterpiece.
He's gone.
To the plate. And he could end it all now with the most dramatic of flourishes. Performance. He is absolutely fabulous.
You're looking at one for the ages here.
He is Mr. November.
This is one of the all-time great balls.
She is gone. The remarkable Wyatt has attained baseball immortality.
The greatest of all time.
Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. They're going crazy. I don't believe what I just saw.
Has his own bat. Some kids have two bats. They're whipping around the park like Kylo Ren. Like, you've seen 4 good pitches all year. Why is your bat $560? And why can't you guys hand it to the next kid when you're done striking out with it? We got $4,000 worth of bats in the dugout. We have 2 hits.
Howdy, y'all. This is Big Tex Gage Gein, executive producer of Backwards K-Pod. In Texas, we do everything big. After football and golf, there's probably nothing I love more than going fishing and enjoying a good crawfish boil. The only thing I dislike about going fishing is the lingering odor it can leave on your hands afterwards. Well, the Fish and Hand Cleaner is an all-natural liquid soap perfect for overpowering fish and bait odors from your hands. I can't tell you how many times I've eaten steamed crabs, lobster, shrimp, crawfish, and then washed my hands with regular soap, only to touch my eyes half hour later, and my face begins to melt off due to the damn Cajun Old Bay spices. Well, we also have a hand cleaner, specifically formulated to use after eating shellfish and other seafoods. Perfect for cleaning spicy, smelly hands after a Texas-sized seafood feast. In these cases, don't settle for anything less than our crawfish hand cleaner, our crab hand cleaner, or the Fishin' Hand Cleaner, an ingenious trifecta of natural hand soaps developed and owned by a disabled Navy veteran. He and Jake have a true connection, as they were boot camp shipmates all the way back in 1989. So he is family, folks. And one thing we do here at the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network is look out for family. So you can support two grassroots companies by two former shipmate Navy vets, crushing big bowls of shellfish or fishing on the banks of your favorite river while you listen to BKP. Sounds like a great day. You know, in fact, hey Mom, where are my poles? I'm gone fishing. There's also a buffalo wing hand cleaner in development as we speak. To check all of the incredible products of this great company, you can go to www.crawfishhandcleaner.com or call the home offices at 713-588-0290. That's 713-588-0290 to support the grassroots company that supports your grassroots podcast show. That's crawfishhandcleaner.com or 713-588-0290 to prepare for your summertime shellfish feast or that fishing trip you're planning. crawfishhandcleaner.com.
I said a moment ago I was a proud man. I feel so very deep about this game of baseball. I'm proud of the integrity that baseball had, and I'd like to relate a story to you. In 1956, our ball club was in first place. We had 3 games to play. We were playing in St. Louis. We were 1 game ahead of the Dodgers. We had 3 games to play. We lost the first one. We were literally tied. At this time, the St. Louis Cardinals were in 4th place. They had it wrapped up. Monetarily, it didn't mean a doggone to them whether they won or lost those ball games. But they had a service to baseball to do, and that is to finish the season the best way they knew how. And on a Saturday, they beat us a 13-inning ball game, 2-1, played the most outstanding defensive game you ever saw, and actually made less money because the World Series cut, because they beat us and the Dodgers, who had a smaller stadium, won the pennant and played in the World Series. But this to me proves that our game is beyond reproach, that the guys out there play for the sake of winning. And I'm very proud to have been associated. Thank you so much.
Gangsters in the house. Gangsters in the house. Gangsters in the house.
Welcome back into the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. And this is Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. I'm your host, half man, half podcast machine, Jake the Snake Robinson. And this week, I'm taken to the mound to opine the story about the life and baseball journey of the great Warren Spahn. The southpaw is the winningest left-hander to ever toe a Major League rubber and the winningest pitcher to ever pitch his whole career in the live ball modern era. And just know that anytime you ever hear me utter the words modern era baseball, well, for me, that doesn't begin until Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier in 1947, opening the game of record books to players of all persuasions. He comes from humble beginnings, growing up in blue-collar Buffalo, New York during the Great Depression. His father, Edward, was quite the athlete in his day, but he was always overlooked because of his diminutive stature, so he takes his left-handed son under his wing and stresses the fundamentals and proper mechanics that will carry him throughout his long and successful career. Even though he leads his high school to 2 city championships, and he threw a no-hitter during his senior year, Major League scouts were lukewarm on Warren's ability, as most scouts considered him to be just a lanky bag of bones. But Brave scout Billy Myers sees an unpolished gem with high upside, and he convinces the club to sign him in 1940. For 2 years, Warren bossed up the Braves farm system despite battling injuries and just plain bad luck. In 1942, he makes a show at his spring training, but he finds himself quickly demoted back to the farm when he fails to follow orders by manager Casey Stengel to drill Dodgers Hall of Fame shortstop Pee Wee Reeves. He makes his humble return back to the farm and dominates the Eastern League circuit. He would return late in the 1942 season to finish out the year for the Braves, who finished in 7th place. 1943, 1944, and 1945, Warren finds himself in France and Belgium along the Western Front theater of World War II, repelling Nazis. He served valiantly in Bastogne during the gruesome battle of the Bulge, surviving a barrage of artillery, and he and his division of Army Combat Engineers were responsible for securing, repairing, and keeping watch over the Ramagen Railroad Bridge that ran over the Rhine River, a critical strategic area of interest to Allied command because it digs into the heart of Deutschland and is a key point for Allied supply lines. By the time he returns to the States, he is recognized as the most honored World War II baseball player in the majors, winning a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, a battlefield promotion to second lieutenant, and a Presidential Citation. When he lost in Major League service time, he makes up for with his new muscular physique, improved stamina, and a higher level of concentration and attention to detail, all characteristics that he would always swear prepared him for the long, successful career ahead of him. In 1946, at the age of 25, Warren gets his first of his 363 wins, defeating the Pittsburgh Pirates at Ford Field, and he starts 16 games in 46 and goes 8-5 with a 2.95 ERA. From 1947 to 1952, Warren established himself as the ace of the Boston franchise, going 114-86 during that span. He faces 7,102 opposing batters, pitches in 1,742 2/3 innings. He leads the NL in strikeouts for 4 consecutive years from 1949 to 1952, accumulating 926 strikeouts, a 38 WAR, and a 3.04 ERA. His brilliant work on the mound at least the Braves to the 1948 World Series, where Boston will fall to the Tribe in 6 games, and Warren goes 1-1 with an ERA of 3.0 and 3 games with 12 strikeouts and 12 innings pitched. The Braves do not put up much of a fight in defense of their league crown in 1948, finishing in 4th place, 4 games under 500. And by now, the Braves have a tenuous hold on their future in Boston. The team is plagued by infighting and mediocre play on the field. And 1952 is the last year the Braves would call Boston home. Their stadium had become obsolete. The attendance was in a free fall, as the team was now in clear second in the baseball pecking order of the city, behind the Red Sox. The team that had made the World Series just 4 years prior was on their way towards a 7th-place finish with a 64, 89, and 2 record. Warren himself is having a hard time getting run support in his starts, and he goes 14-19 with a 2.98 ERA in the team's last year in Boston. During the offseason, the collapse of the Braves is complete when owner Lou Perini decides to up and move the team to Milwaukee in March of 1953. They were the first team to relocate in 50 years, and it signals a change in the game. Following the Braves' exodus from Boston, the landscape of Major League Baseball shifts, with the Browns relocating to Baltimore. The Philadelphia Athletics say goodbye to the city of brotherly love for Kansas City. And the Dodgers and Giants both bolt from the Empire State to Northern and Southern California. Before the 1953 season kicks off in the new city, Spahn negotiates a contract that would pay him $25,000 a year, which is worth about $300,000 in the 2025 economy. But he rejects an offer by the club that would give him 10 cents for every paid admission over $800,000. In his mind, he felt the clause would be a waste of ink, as the Braves drew a league-low 281,278 fans to Braves Field their last year in Boston. He didn't figure attendance would swell much or foresee the franchise moving to Milwaukee. Besides, Spahn has his eye on another source of revenue when he opens the Warren Spahn Diner just across the street from Braves Field on Commonwealth Avenue in Boston. And those were two business decisions that saw net losses when the team jetted from Milwaukee. The Braves drew a whopping 1.8 million fans to County Stadium, which would have netted Spahn a $100,000 bonus, which is worth about $1.2 million in 2025. And his restaurant opened in Boston without its namesake and primary owner in tow. But financial loss wasn't the only challenges that Warren that inaugural season in Milwaukee. For all the success his popularity with the fans and the respect had garnered from teammates as well as opponents, Spahn was always an incredibly insecure superstar who never forgot where he came from as a struggling poor kid living in Buffalo, New York during the Great Depression. After ripping cartilage in his knee during the Braves' 1953 spring training camp, he doesn't tell anyone. Years later, he remembered his decision-making back then was based on a theory that as an older player, the Braves would have thought twice about cutting the veteran southpaw if they knew about the injury. Now, after reflection, a few years later, he knows that sounds silly. Surely the club wouldn't have cut their team leader and more accomplished. But at the time, he was convinced that the club would have let him go if they knew the extent of his injuries. The competitor pitches through the painful knee injury all year. He appears in the new city's opener in Milwaukee with the win. He picks up the W in the All-Star game, and he leads the league with 23 wins and a 2.10 ERA. Only after the completion of that first season in Milwaukee does he inform the Braves brass of his injury, and then he schedules himself for off-season surgery. In their first 3 years in the new gigs, the Braves finished in second place, third place, and second place while rebuilding with young talent like Hank Aaron, Joe Adcock, Del Crandall, Billy Bruton, and Spahn's new wingman and fellow prankster, Lou Burdett, who the Braves ironically obtained in the all-season trade with the Yankees for Johnny Sain. Spahn remained dominant, but with the chance to capture the 1956 pennant on the season's final day after the Braves had won 10 of their last 11 games, Spahn would lose a 12-inning heartbreaker to the Cards when a tailor-made double-play grounder took a freakish bad hop, scoring the Cardinals' winning run. Spahn was so distraught after the game that his eyes welled up in tears as he walked off the diamond, and in a fit of frustration, he threw his glove at a photographer in the stands who was recording one of the lowest points of his baseball career. He would later apologize to the photographer when cooler heads prevailed. But the 36-year-old Spahn comes back with a vengeance in 1957, capturing his only Cy Young Award career in the second year of the award's creation, going 21-11 with the league-leading 18 complete games. The highlight of the year comes when he wins 6 games in a 19-day stretch that sees the Braves snatch their first flag in Milwaukee, setting them on course for a World Series dogfight with the New York Yankees. In Game 1 of the 1957 World Series, Spahn loses a pitcher's duel to Yankees left-hander Whitey Ford 3-1 in the Bronx, but he would avenge that loss with a 10-inning performance in Game 4, where the Braves edge out the Bombers 7-5. After the game, he comes down with a nasty flu, and he watches Game 7 from the bench as his buddy Lou Burdett chokes out the Yankees on 2 days' rest for his third win of the series and the World Series title. And on one hand, he was ecstatic for the team's accomplishment, and he was happy for his friend Burdett, who took home series MVP honors and a new car. But the competitor that needed to be fed, that lives inside of Hook, it was disappointed that he wasn't on the bump for the team's title-clinching game. When the Yankees and Braves hooked up in a World Series rematch a year later, Spahn, who went 22-11 during the regular season, wins Game 1 rematch versus Whitey Ford and the Yankees 4-3 in 10 innings, helping out his own cause on the bump with 2 base knocks and an RBI in the victory. Warren is superb in Game 4, surrendering just 2 hits to the mighty Yankees bats and a 3-0 complete game shutout to give the Braves a commanding 3-1 advantage. But manager Fred Haney calls on Spahn after 2 days of rest to start Game 6, which he loses 4-3 in 10 innings. The Braves may have won the game if Albert Billy Bruton had missed a pop-up and it turned into a single, and the third baseman coach Billy Herman doesn't send 37-year-old Andy Popko home on a short sacrifice fly to shallow left field. Many pundits considered Spahn the pitcher of the series with his 2-1 record and his 2.20 series ERA, and he was certainly much more productive than the World Series the year before when Milwaukee won the chip. But, baseball is a crazy game, and the Yankees took home the chip after battling back from the 3-1 hole to win the World Championship. Blessed with the extraordinary staying power of a Duracell battery, the 30-year-old Hook just keeps going and going and going. He pitches a league-high 292 innings for the Braves in 1959, going 21-15 for the injury-riddled team that would lose a 2-game end-of-the-series playoff series to the Dodgers for the National League pennant. As the team begins to fall into a precipitous decline, Spahn continues to dominate National League batters, and arguably, quite possibly, he takes his game to an even higher level. In 1957, at the age of 36, he is in the beginning stages of stringing together 5 consecutive seasons of more than 20 wins in a season. In 1960 and 61, he has back-to-back seasons where he throws his only 2 major league no-hitters at the age of 39 and 40. He strikes out 15 Phillies in the first no-no in a 4-0 victory at County Stadium with only 6,117 fans in attendance on September 16, 1960. And as the innings are rolling off the board and as the outs are beginning to mount up, the jokester thinks to himself, Jesus Christ, this dugout is tense. You guys need to loosen up. So to bring some levity to the bench, he yells out, all right, don't any of you guys remind me that I got a no-hitter going on today. And his brave teammates are shocked by the belligerent violation of silence protocol during a no-hitter, and they politely laugh as a relaxed atmosphere carried the boys to the remainder of the game. Spahn ends the no-no in grand style, inducing the final batter into a 1-6-3 double play to secure history. The second no-no comes in 1961 when the 40-year-old crafty southpaw twirls a masterpiece 1-0 no-hitter versus the San Francisco Giants at County Stadium, this time in front of 8,518 fans, as Hank Aaron drives in the game's only run in the bottom of the first with a single to right field that scores second baseman Frank Bowling. Warren has the defensive play of the game with a spectacular glove hand, backhanded ball flip to first baseman Joe Adcock in the ninth inning to nip speedster Matty Alou busting it down the first base line, looking to break up the no-no with a bunt. He faces 27 Giants that day, allowing two walks, but both of those times, those runners were wiped out by double play ground balls, preserving his 27 batters faced. But that wasn't his only milestone in 1961. On August 11, County Stadium is packed with a record crowd of 48,642 Braves fans to witness the crafty Porsider pick up career win number 300 with a 2-1 triumph over the Northside Cubs, making him just the 13th pitcher in the game's history and the first since Lefty Gomez in 1941 to reach the 300-win bar. But even upon getting to win number 300, the Lefty is far from done, and perhaps the last extraordinary performance of his illustrious career, the 42-year-old veteran loses a tough 1-0 nail-biter to 25-year-old Juan Marichal and the San Francisco Giants. The two legends match pitches for 16 innings apiece before Spahn's old nemesis, Willie Mays, the same player that broke out of his rookie slump by dropping dong on Warren's lips back in 1951, was back to inflict even more pain on Warren 12 years later, walking it off with a majestic blast to end the 0-0 tie. The game was an epic affair that goes on for over 4 hours. Both Marichal and Spahn, they pitched the full 16 innings, and the game is widely considered by many baseball historians as the best pitched game ever in the history of the game. When explaining his longevity to inquiring minds, the usually loquacious Spahn would explain his craft with one word: mechanics. You have to be a student of the game to hold on in this league. The way I throw never put a lot of strain on my elbow or arm. Braves pitching coach Whitlow Wyatt was grateful to have Spahn in his rotation and would tell anyone who would listen that Warren just made my job easier. Every pitch he threw in the majors had an idea behind it, and that man had a plan, and he executed that plan every fourth day. Spahn's longtime catcher, Del Crandall, would tell Warren's son Greg that his father showed the batter three things in the batter's box. The first thing he showed the hitter was the sole of his right foot, then the back of his glove, and finally the ball that seemed to shoot out of his jersey. Spahn would begin his pitch with an almost curly bow to the batters. He would then rock back, raise his right leg above his head in the 5 minutes to 6 position, and that was followed by an overhand delivery that was both smooth and fierce as an oil field puppy jack back home in Oklahoma, where he and his wife owned a ranch. Every single pitch was thrown with the same motion, leaving the batter helpless and reading the pitcher out of Warren's hand. Because of a shoulder injury he suffered playing high school football, Warren was never able to raise his right hand above his shoulder. As his windup was coming to home plate, his glove would rise slowly, and then it gave the appearance of descending through the hitter's line of vision. And batters would often complain early on about his distracting glove work during his pitches. So Warren continues to employ the wizardry and deception throughout his career. And The closest analogy I can use to compare with Warren Spahn's career is strikeout king Nolan Ryan, who pitched at a high level into his 40s. And just like Nolan Ryan, Spahn was a firm believer in revolutionary training habits he employed during the winter off-season. Most pitchers during this era, they would use spring training to get in shape, and they would baby their arms between starts, but not Spahn. He always hit camp already in tip-top shape, spending the winter months working out on his ranch and constantly throwing between starts. The same could be said about Warren's research technique. He studied hitters and their tendencies, rarely giving them the same scripted pitches from one year to the next. He was also no slouch with a stick in his hand. In addition to his 363 victories on the bump, he also had 363 lifetime career hits and 35 home runs, the most home runs ever hit by a National League pitcher. As time passes, Spahn would learn to adapt to the game, to the always evolving game, and its new cast of sluggers who would make the show every year. When the fastball begins to fade, he learns how to throw a gravity-defying screwball. And when the Scroogey wasn't enough, he tinkered with the sweeping slider. When his aching knees begin to betray him in 1964, he goes 6-13 and is forced to endure manager Bobby Reagan's baseless insinuations that Warren was hanging on selfishly because of his $80,000 a year salary, which has the economic power of around $830,000 in the 2025 economy. On November 23, 1964, the New York Mets purchased Spahn from the Braves to serve as a starting pitcher, as well as the team's pitching coach. A week later, the team signs 40-year-old catching legend Yogi Berra, which prompted Warren to tell the local sports writers, "Hey, I don't know if we're the oldest battery mates in the history of the game, but hands down, I know we are the ugliest by far." Warren had truly come full circle in his career, reuniting with Mets manager Casey Stengel, who had unceremoniously demoted him to the Eastern League for failing to drill Pee Wee Reese after being ordered by Stengel to do so. After finishing in 6th or 7th place during the last 5 years of the Braves' managerial tenure, Casey had achieved legendary status and a Hall of Fame resume, leading the Yankees to 10 American League pennants in 12 years. Now he is skippering the Mets, who are even more woeful than the Braves were when he was managing them. The Mets had lost a record 120 games under Stengel to the Mets' inaugural 1962 season, and he suffered through 109 and 111 losses in 63 and 64. And even Warren Spahn could not overcome having a club full of youngsters and cast-offs as his supporting staff. But sometimes he would find himself in a position where he wielded a measure of power with the team and would take matters in his own hands. For example, during a 1965 game against Claude Osteen and the Los Angeles Dodgers, Warren carries a 3-0 lead into the 9th inning. The Dodgers would rally for 2 runs, prompting a mound visit from the charismatic Casey Stengel, whose admiration of Warren went back to his days in Boston. And he never saw fit to second-guess his pitching coach's tactics. So he looks the grizzled vet in the eye and asks him, "Who are you looking to bring in from the bullpen?" To which Spahn confidently responds back, "Well, Skip, I'll tell you, I think I'm going to leave the starter in today." And the wise old guru nods his head in approval and walks back to the dugout. Warren would shut down the next 3 batters to secure the win for his beleaguered team. But the miracle well runs dry, and Spahn is released by the Mets in 1965 and he's quickly picked up on the San Francisco Giants in a midseason acquisition. Before he leaves New York, he gives the sports writers one last memorable soundbite when he boasts that, hey, I'm the only player to play for Casey Stengel before and after he was a baseball genius. By now, Spahn's baseball career is hanging on by a thread, and his play is mediocre in the East Bay of Northern California. Before he steps away for good, he bears witness to his once rival, now teammate, Willie Mays smashing his 500th home run. When Mays rounds the bases and joins his teammates in the dugout to celebrate the milestone moment, Spahn slaps Mays on the back and says, congratulations, say, hey, I was witness to your very first home run and your 500 career dong. What an amazing accomplishment, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Warren finishes his 1965 season with a 7-6 team record between the Giants and the Mets, a 4.01 ERA, and San Francisco releases the 44-year-old hurler at the conclusion of the year. He doesn't get any offers, but his baseball career isn't over just yet. He would always say that he didn't retire from Major League Baseball, that the Major League Baseball retired him. Spahn remained in the game, pitching 3 games for the Mexico City Tigers in 1966 and 3 games for the Tulsa Oilers in 1967. And fans often got the mistaken impression that the 45-year-old Warren was gearing up for a comeback. But actually, he was just demonstrating technique to the Mexican team, was coaching and playing for, and then his goals were to improve attendance for the American team was managing. His Tulsa Oilers won the Pacific Coast League Championship in 1968, and Spahn is voted League Manager of the Year. He refuses a promotion to coach the St. Louis Cardinal pitching staff in 1970, outstays his welcome in Tulsa, and is fired as the team manager in 1971. During his tenure as the manager for the Oilers, he racks up 372 wins. He picks up a gig a year later, scouting and coaching young prospects for the Cardinals, then spends 2.5 years as the pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians. His spirit and love of the game is reinvigorated when he is inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1973. At that time, he was only the 6th player in the history of the game to earn induction in his first year of eligibility, even though his eligibility was delayed by 2 years. Spahn is inducted with posthumous inductees Roberto Clemente, who was his son Greg's second favorite baseball player. From 1973 to 1978, he spent his summers pitching for the Hiroshima Carp, instructing pitchers for the Hiroshima Carp in Japan before bouncing around the game, coaching Angels prospects for a few years before retiring of the nonstop travel. Blood spoken to the end, he blasted long-haired players and dismissed the idea of the newfangled designated hitter position, lamenting that pitchers should be athletes like every other position on the diamond, and a pitcher should be able to help his team win with not only his arm, but also the legs and bat. On October 16th, 1995, Spahn is inducted into the Boston Braves Hall of Fame at the annual reunion of the Boston Braves Historical Association. In their last days together, he and former teammate Johnny Sain visited what was left of Braves Field with the memories of 1948 fresh in their baseball psyche. As Spahn is drinking in the moment before what seemed like half of the city of Boston, he picks up the mic and tells the crowd that had the Braves drew crowds of this size back in the day, the team may still be playing in B-Town to this day. Thanks to his wife, Lorene, who got her husband to forsake the brutal Buffalo winters and settle down at Hartshorn, Oklahoma. Spahn attains vast wealth during his retirement years, running a 2,000-acre cattle farm and leasing out some of his land for gas wells. Greg Spahn wistfully remembers his mother, who died in 1978, as a shrewd businesswoman who talked him and his father into buying 4 plots of beachfront property in Florida that is literally worth millions of dollars today. In August of 2003, the Atlanta Braves paid homage to the iconic legend when the team unveils Shan Gray's 9-foot bronze statue of Warren Spahn high-kicking his way towards another pitch outside of Braves' former home stadium, Turner Field. The statue has since been moved to the Braves' newest crib, Truist Park. Ailing from various ailments, most of them age-related, the 82-year-old Warren Spahn was wheeled out to admire his statue in a pregame ceremony. And the pitcher was in great spirits, and he cracks jokes at the unveiling ceremony when he tells the crowd that he took great pride in mooning spectators, and that's the reason he developed the high leg kick. It was basically the last great moment for the Hurley public, leaving the audience captivated by his charisma and witty jokes. 1 month later, November 24, 2003, the legendary southpaw dies in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and he's buried in Elmwood Cemetery in Hartshorn, Oklahoma. Soon after his death, posthumous honors followed his legend. In his hometown of Buffalo, New York, they renamed the street leading up to Casanova Park, where his old high school baseball field resides, to Warren Spahn Way. Other statues were unveiled in Oklahoma City at Bricktown Ballpark and at the Oklahoma Sports Museum in Guthrie. Finally, the Oklahoma Sports Museum established the Warren Spahn Award in 1999, and it's given annually to the most dominant Major League Southpaw pitcher of the year. Should the award have been named after other left-handers in the game's history? Maybe Lefty Grove, Sadie Koufax, Steve Carlton, Eddie Plank, or Randy Johnson? Well, maybe. Certainly a case can be made for any of those guys, but if winning is the bottom line as a professional, then the award is rightfully named in honor of Warren Spahn. His 363 career wins by any southpaw is the most by any southpaw in the game's history, and he's also the winningest pitcher to ever perform in the live ball modern era. He was consistently reliable, as his regular season ERA of 3.09, All-Star ERA of 3.21, and his World Series ERA of 3.05 can attest to. Spahn also holds records, or shares modern Major League records, for 21 seasons. The most years leading the league in wins with 8, career innings pitched by a left-hander with 5,246, wins in a season at the age of 40 with 21 in 1961, as well as wins by a 42-year-old hurler with 23 in 1961, and quite possibly double plays started by a pitcher with 82. Unfortunately, double plays started is not an official stat for pitchers. His 35 home runs are the most ever hit by a National League pitcher. No matter Spahn's age, he was outstanding in the clutch. Throughout his career, he sported a winning percentage of .544 from April until July, followed by a career winning percentage of .676 between the month of August and October. a stupefying 130-point increase in winning percentage down the stretch of any given season. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part where I draw the curtain on the third act of our profile dig into the baseball journey of the legendary Warren Spahn. Another body dropped into our collection of ball players and their stories as I draw a big, beautiful backwards K next to his name in the scorebook. But before I go all young MC and bust a move out this mother, let me take one final look at those, so impressive, Hall of Fame resume, stats, and accolades the great Warren Spahn left behind in his wake. Okay, Warren Spahn, a.k.a. the Great Profile, a.k.a. Hook. Born April 23rd, 1921 in Buffalo, New York. He died on November 24th, 2003 in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And he's buried in Elmwood Cemetery in Hartshorn, Oklahoma. Attended South Park High School in Buffalo, New York. On April 19th, 1942, the 20-year-old Warren Spahn becomes the 9,237th man in the history of the planet Earth to join the MLB fraternity when he makes his big late debut, pitching a clean 2/3 of an inning against the New York Giants at the Polo Grounds. 21-year playing career with the Boston and Milwaukee Braves, the New York Mets, and the San Francisco Giants. His 92.6 pitcher's WAR is the 14th best pitcher's WAR in the history of the game. His 363 wins is the 6th most in the game's history, the most wins by a left-hander, and the most wins by a pitcher who pitched exclusively in the live ball modern era. 245 losses for a most impressive .597 career winning percentage. 750 games, 665 of those games were starts, 28 saves, 21,547 batters faced, the 10th most batters faced by any pitcher in Major League Baseball history. 5,243 innings pitched, the 8th most ever by a Major League pitcher. 3.09 ERA, 3.46 BIP, 1.20 WHIP. 2,583 strikeouts, the 30 most in baseball history, 1,434 walks, 382 complete games, the 21st most ever. In his career, he led the National League 9 years in complete games, and his 63 shutouts are the 6th most in baseball history. 119 ERA plus. And not a bad hitter for a pitcher. He finishes with a 194, 234, 287 slash line. His 35 home runs are the most ever hit by a National League pitcher. 189 RBIs. 17-time All-Star, 3-time ERA champion, 1957 World Champion, 1957 Cy Young winner. In 1965, the Atlanta Braves honor Spahn's uniform number 21 as the very first number to be retired in Braves franchise history. In 1973, his first year of eligibility, Warren collects 83.2% of the possible votes by the Baseball Writers Association of America to earn induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, same heads of all ages, this has been the story of Warren Edward Spahn. And I want to thank you, freaks, for lending me your ears this week. And I hope you enjoyed listening to the Warren Spahn bio as much as I enjoyed doing the research and delivering the story to you. Now, before I pop these mics down for another week, I would be remiss if I didn't relay some sad news to you this week as 74-year-old Hall of Fame outfielder, most notably for the Pirates, Reds, A's, Dave Parker, the Cobra, as he was affectionately known, succumbed to his battle with Parkinson's disease after more than a decade. Parker was one of the most dangerous guns of his era during the 1970s and 80s. He was a 7-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, and the strength of his rocket launcher went arm out in right field, 2-time batting champ in 1977 and 1978, 3 Silver Slugger awards, 2-time World Series champion in 1979 with the We Are Family Pirates, and in 1989 with the Oakland A's. And he was the 1978 National League Most Valuable Player. In 1985, he won the inaugural Home Run Derby at the Hubert Humphrey Dome in Minnesota in a 10-player field that included 5 of the Hall of Famers in the competition: Jim Rice, Eddie Murray, Carlton Fisk, Cal Ripken Jr., and Ryan Sandberg. And me personally, I will never forget his swagger and uncompromising love for his teammates as much as I will remember his beautiful style of play. His 1979 season particularly, it resonates with me as I can remember sitting with my Uncle David and grandfather watching the All-Star game being played in Seattle. It was the 50th All-Star game played, and throughout my youth, the National League had dominated the American League counterparts, which my grandfather, who was a diehard Dodgers fan, always credited the National League's dominance to being in the forefront of tapping into black baseball talent during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And going into the 1979 All-Star game, the National League had won 7 straight Midsummer Classics. But anyway, the 1979 All-Star game is shaping out to be the year the American League was going to snap their losing ways and earn the respect from the NL counterparts. With the score tied 6-6 in the bottom of the 8th, Brian Downing, the muscle-bound catcher for the California Angels, is at second base. Yankees third baseman Craig Nettles hits a flare in the right field that Parker, on a hop off the artificial turf of the Kingdom, fields cleanly. And Downing is on a mad dash to score the go-ahead run in the 50th Midsummer Classic. Cobra cleanly transfers the ball from his glove to his throwing hand, and he unleashes his intercontinental ballistic missile of an arm to Expos catcher Gary Carter, who catches the throw on the fly and tags Downing inches from the plate to preserve the tie. And that was his second upfield assist of the Classic. In the 7th inning, he throws out Jim Rice at third base after misplaying a can of corn fly ball. He retrieved the ball with his back to the infield, spins and fires to third base to catch Jim Rice by 3 steps. Mets outfielder Lee Mazzilli would end the game with a home run in the 10th, and the National League would secure their 8th straight victory over the junior circuit. But Parker was the star of the spectacle, and he takes home the All-Star MVP hardware for his defensive genius, which it taught me an important lesson early in this game. Even if you're unable to help your team with the bat, there are other ways to impact the game and help your team. And for me, 1979 was a special year in my baseball fandom. I fell in love with the Orioles. I started collecting baseball cards. My uncle used to deliver News American newspapers, and every morning I would scour the box scores and standings after that All-Star game. And Parker was one of those guys that I always kept tabs on through the box scores, who don't play for my beloved Birds, along with dudes like Garvey, Rose, Michael Jack Schmidt, Rodney Klein Carrillo, and Reggie. I used to marvel how Parker would seemingly go 3 for 5 every day with a dong and an outfield assist, seemingly at will, which leads to my second memory of my introduction to the exploits of Dave freaking Parker, the 1979 World Series matchup between the Orioles and the Pirates. And this is where I developed a love-hate relationship with Cobra, as it didn't matter who my Orioles put on the mound in that classic. Jim Palmer, Scotty McGregor, the 1979 AL Cy Young winner, Mike Flanagan. Dave Parker absolutely destroys Orioles pitching in the series, going 10 for 29 with 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored in the 7-game contest, slashing 345, 395, 448, with 13 total bases and an 842 OPS. And that's when I learned there is a thin line in competition between fear and respect. The Cobra was a straight baller, and before his well-deserved vote into the National Baseball Hall of Fame this past December, I'd often said that Dave Parker is as great as a baseball player that can be outside the PED guys without being in the Hall. Thankfully, he got the call before he died, unlike guys like Ron Santo, Dick Allen, and Marvin Miller. And even though, sadly, he would not be able to deliver his speech for the induction ceremony in a few weeks on July 27th, he was able to go out with the confirmation of being a baseball immortal. He had been battling Parkinson's disease for nearly a decade and was confined to a wheelchair for most of his years. The vote by the Veterans Committee was the culmination of a long journey that will see him take his rightful place among the legends of the game. He is survived by his wife of 30 years, Kelly, and their 6 children. His career was not only highlighted by the highest of highs, but also Mariana Trench lows. His career was in serious jeopardy in 1985 when Curtis Strong testified in court that he sold cocaine to baseball players in the Pittsburgh Pirates clubhouse, including Dave Parker. A time in baseball history I've documented in my catalog of bangers with the Pittsburgh Drug Trials biopic. Check that out if you haven't already. And it was a charge that probably cost him a second MVP award in 1985. And it was a charge he always took accountability for. He was able to quell his addictions in 1983 when he realized his play was suffering from the use of cocaine. He avoids a year-long suspension from the game by donating 10% of his salary to drug prevention programs, performing community service, and agreeing to random drug testing for the rest of his career. Then, the Pirates filed a civil lawsuit against Parker, claiming that his drug use constituted a breach of his contract, and they set out to void $5.3 million in deferred payments that the franchise owed him through 2007, but the two sides would reach an agreement in 1988. Parker's first year of Hall of Fame eligibility comes in 1997, and he tallies only 17.5% of the vote. He moves up to 24% in 1998, but that's as close as he ever got with the Baseball Writers Association. And he spends 15 years on the ballot without really any serious recognition. Now, he didn't finish his career with magic numbers at 3,000 hits or 500 home runs. His peak years were relatively short, followed by 7 years of really good production, but not great. He earned a sizable collection of awards and accolades, and of his entire 19-year Major League career, he really only has one bad season statistically. Several ball players spent years in Cooperstown limbo for their drug use, like Ferguson Jenkins, Orlando Cepeda, and Tim Raines. And all of those guys were eventually forgiven for their transgressions. Thankfully, so was Parker, and just in the nick of time before his death on June 28, 2025. And I'm sure at some point we'll be adding a story to our collection of ball players here at BKP. So it's with a heavy, mournful heart I'd like to raise a glass to propose a toast in Cobra's memory and thank the Veterans Committee for getting it right and rectifying his omission for all those years before it was too late. Dave Parker, the motherfucking Cobra. Rest in peace, Godspeed, and time will not dim the glory of your deeds. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming out. God bless and win the day. As Gunner has us feverishly racing up the tracks, trying to get your nerds back to your loved ones, patiently awaiting your return to Terrapin Station, just know that I'll be up bright and early tomorrow morning, working up a sweat with a bullpen session in anticipation of my next outing for guys, and I promise, I'll try to be better next week. I would never charge you for the baseball content offered up here at BKP. No Patreon, no Twitch, no pay-to-play subscriptions. I'm just going to keep coming through every week with that free baseball smoke.
You don't want that smoke.
And I'm going to keep my shit consistent like that big donkey Aaron Judge. So, with the Warren Spahn bio complete, and our solemn respects given to Dave Parker, I see this week's version of the show getting smaller and smaller in our rearview mirror. I turn our attention to our never say die baseball hydra. I reach into my kimono, grab my katana blade, and I chop the head off that beast, only to see two more baseball topics appear in its place. Next week, I'm headed back to the Charm City, Baltimore, Maryland. Enjoy a well-deserved vacay. Watch my Orioles take on the Mets and Marlins at Camden Yards. But I'll be here for you, Priest, with yet another chapter of baseball history when I dig into the life and times of the catalyst spark plug of the Big Red Machine Cincinnati teams of the 1970s. I mean, who knew that the smallest piece of the engine could be so destructive to the opponent on both sides of the ball? Ladies and gentlemen, next week, I give you one of the greatest second basemen who ever lived, the late, great Joe Morgan. But look, the OGs in there know how I roll. That's another story for another pod here at Backwards K Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. It's my honor to serve as your gatekeeper to the rich history of baseball, and I look forward to climbing the bump next week and delivering a scorebook filled with backwards K's from my hometown Baltimore. Vinny Bassi, I came, I saw, I kicked this show's ass. Me and Charlie Guns, we throwing our Gunnar Hendersons high in the air, y'all. That's our number 2, nerds. As in peace. Joe Morgan on deck. Baltimore City, home sweet home next week. Can't wait to get on the mic and do this dance with you guys all over again. Nothing but love for you, Seaman Priest. See ya!